Hello, this is Linda Dashu.
And I'm Steve.
The video you're about to watch was created in 2003. It's based on 4 of our books, now available as free PDF downloads at setsail.com.
This is our way of saying thank you to all of those who have shared their knowledge with us over the years, and to extend a helping hand to fellow sailors getting ready to make it happen for themselves.
When we first went cruising
40-some years ago,
we had nothing to guide us. We didn't have a clue. Our waterline was too low. We arrived in French Polynesia in the summer without a single cabin fan, and our fridge needed 3 hours a day on the engine to stay cool. The learning curve was steep, but we had lots of fun in the process and eventually began to get it right. Today, it's both easier and harder. There's way more information available, better boats, cooler systems, easier navigation. But there's so much to do, so much stuff from which to choose that it's hard to know the right and wrong decisions. The truth is, when you're getting ready to cruise, nobody can give you all the answers because everybody's situation is different. Time frames, finances, where you want to cruise, the right combination is different every time. The process of getting ready to go, balancing the needs of putting your land-based life in order, getting your cruising skills polished, and preparing your boat can seem overwhelming. It doesn't have to be. The key is making the right choices. That's why we've made this short DVD, to help you pick your way through the options and demands on your time and budget. We'll show you how to make the most of our cruising essentials, which will help you make the right decisions for your own budget and cruising dreams. Right now, the process may seem overwhelming, but we're going to help you simplify it and make it a lot more fun. The key is to prioritize what needs to happen to get you out there cruising. Welcome aboard.
I've seen all kinds of pictures of pretty islands, seen some places that I sure like to see. I got this boat down in Marina Del Rey, but there's a lot of places I'd rather be. Someday I'll sail away. All right now.
Let's start with the Offshore Cruising Encyclopedia. This book deals with the details of choosing the right boat for your budget and outfitting it, all against a background of the cruising lifestyle. The table of contents is organized to let you really dig in without getting confused. It has 24 major sections which are divided into 399 subsections. The index gets downright intricate, with close to 7,000 entries. All of this makes it easy to locate any subject in seconds. When you're getting ready to make it happen, there are always lots of trade-offs, starting with costs, the type of cruising you want to do, and your real-world experience. Our own feeling is that the simpler you keep things and the less stuff you have aboard, the more you will enjoy your cruising.
Sailing is easy if you just know.
Offshore Cruising Encyclopedia covers a lot of territory, and we don't expect you to read it all in one sitting. Our suggestion is to start with the introduction. Then switch to the back of the book and read Perspective, which looks at a variety of different boats, from a Contessa 26 to our own Beowulf. You may want to take a look at the section on design and construction. It's been written to help you with choosing a new boat or evaluating the boat you currently own. Our feeling is that the most important thing to invest in is a good structure with the most waterline you can afford. There is often a choice to make between a larger, older boat or a newer, smaller design. How you make this decision depends on what you will be doing with the boat. Keep in mind that once you have a basically sound structure, rig, and steering system, almost any design will do the job. Concentrate on getting the basics right, and then spend some extended time away from home base. After an initial period on board, your outlook on what you want and don't want on your boat will change. When you take some time to leave the dock before you make a lot of decisions, you end up making better choices, and your money will be more wisely invested. If you already have a boat, next would come outfitting and systems. There are a couple of critical things to keep in mind here. First, every decision you make, each piece of gear you add, will affect everything else on the boat. Before making any final decisions, put together an outline of everything you want to do and then look at where it will go in the boat and how its installation and servicing will affect the other systems. Offshore Cruising Encyclopedia has 7 major sections covering systems. When we're designing a new boat, we start with the power systems first, AC and DC, and then look at refrigeration. During this initial decision-making, you will find that you need to come back and refine your ideas. That's a normal part of the process. There are lots of choices to make on deck, from ground tackle to sail inventory to awnings and furling gear. Each of these has its own section in the book. We like our ground tackles big, sized for poor weather, lousy holding, and exposed anchorages. Having a good basic sail inventory is essential to both cruising comfort and safety. On page 71, the chapter on cruising sails will give you a good start. Good awnings are an art form and hard to get right with temperate climate cover makers. This section of the book is designed for you to take with you when discussing what you're after with your local supplier. Although our boat building business has been based on large, sophisticated cruisers, we want to emphasize that the less stuff you have on your boat, the easier it will be to cut those dock lines and get out there cruising.
Don't live on a Friday, try Tuesday, take it from me, baby. Or is it only if it's a night time? Well, then it's the right time for the start of a long journey.
Which brings us to the cruising lifestyle section. This part of the book covers everything from dealing with foreign officials to cruising with kids. You will probably want to have a quick read through this section early on to provide both a base of information and incentive. Before we leave this section, let me recap a couple of things that we found helpful. First, get as much practical experience as possible before making decisions on the right boat and its equipment. The more time you spend aboard, the better choices you'll make. Second, everything you have on board affects everything else. Putting too much stuff into too small a place creates maintenance and operational headaches. Less is always better than more. Lastly, the most important considerations for successful cruising are a sound structure, hull, keel, steering and rig, heavy ground tackle, and a good basic sail inventory.
So your baby comes up to you with a frown on her face that's a mirror of you. And who's supposed to remind you it's in your soul? And all this push for all we know is just too much stuff to make you sink too low. Oh, there comes a time when you cut the lines and go. There just comes a time when you cut the lines and go.
One of the pleasures that comes with seamanship is the feeling of a job well done. This holds true for something as simple as an upwind docking or as complex as backing down under sail through a crowded anchorage. And regardless of how well the maneuver is executed or how much experience you have, even the easiest maneuver can usually be improved upon. The mixes of wind, wave, current, boat, and crew are always changing. Rarely will you find two situations exactly alike. When you head out, whether for an ocean passage or a day sail, you will be gathering new data, improving your techniques, and becoming more comfortable with what you and your boat are capable of doing. Practical seamanship covers this broad range of topics in two main ways. First, the book is designed to give you a heads-up on each aspect of seamanship through the use of diagrams, checklists, and executive summaries. Second, you'll be learning what we call defensive seamanship, a constant awareness of the weather, sea state, boat, and crew. When something doesn't seem right, the time to act is now, without delay. Defensive seamanship means leaving an anchorage at the first hint of trouble. reefing early if the weather is deteriorating, or changing the V-belts on the engine because they're starting to show wear. In short, stay alert and act early, before your options become limited. We'd like to close this introduction with a reminder. The single most important thing you can do to make your cruising successful is to get up to speed on your seamanship skills. This is more important than any lifestyle gear, systems, or organizing your shore life to leave. Your investment of time and energy in learning how to handle the boat and understanding weather will pay more dividends than anything else you can do. The first section deals with preparation. It starts with inspecting the boat before you leave. Next comes sea trials, a process through which you can both evaluate your boat and learn about it at the same time. At the end of this section, we'll discuss clearing the decks for action, along with some comments by professional sailors on the subject. The checklist provides you with the starting point for your own efforts in this area. Boat handling will take you through the basics and then on to topics such as helming on different sail angles, jibing downwind, surfing, reefing, dealing with full battened mains, and picking the most comfortable course. There are sections on motor sailing, sailing in tight quarters, sailing out an anchor, and even backing down under sail. Some of this material you will put to immediate use. Other topics might not be needed for some time, but we encourage you to try all of these maneuvers just for fun, so you have a better feel for what you can accomplish. Next comes working on deck. This starts with safety at sea and then goes on to the foredeck, handling running rigging, going aloft, and even communicating with hand signals. Watchkeeping covers 15 topics. We feel that the chapters on avoiding collision and expecting the unexpected are two of the most important. Navigation starts with an example which we'd all rather not experience, standing on a reef in the Tuamotus, and this on a boat with an experienced crew of 4 equipped with GPS. With the risks of a mistake fresh in our minds, we'll take you through the logic of navigating in the age of GPS and then review our philosophy of defensive navigation. Closing with shore at the end of a passage has its own dangers and its own section. Starting with the concept of sea room, we'll go through signs of approaching land, piloting in fog, and entering strange harbors at night. There are large chapters on piloting in coral, running passes and breaking bars, and reading bottom signs in dirty water. The final chapter deals with cruising through ice. Anchoring starts with a chapter on an unhappy series of events during the winter of 1988 in Cabo San Lucas. Cabo is an exposed anchorage with a steeply shelving bottom just off the beach. When the wind and waves started to come in from offshore, most of the boats stayed put, because that's what their neighbors were doing. By the time they realized the danger, it was too late and most of the boats were washed ashore. A few boats left early when the swells started to build, while it was still easy to put to sea. Bottom line, any time you are anchored and a sea starts to build from an unprotected quarter, the safest thing to do is to get out. There are 17 chapters on anchoring, covering everything from picking the right spot to setting the hook under power and anchoring in coral. You'll also find information on roll control, dealing with fouled anchors, and preparing for a hurricane. Dinghy seamanship, including getting through a beach break, has its own section. Then comes handling your boat under power. Working in tight quarters under power can be tough, so there are a whole series of detailed chapters to study and lots of checklists. There are general chapters on weather and storm tactics, subjects more fully covered in our other books, and then there is a large section on dealing with emergencies, a topic which warrants some serious study and pre-planning for rigging failure, running aground, exposed strandings, towing, and a variety of other potential problems. Good seamanship, including preventative maintenance, will keep this subject hypothetical, except for running aground, which is unavoidable. The final section goes into some detail on the topic of maintenance, what to learn, basic toolkits, and general preparation to stay ahead of trouble. We realize there's a lot here. It can seem overwhelming if you're just getting started. However, the basics are really simple, and if you keep a few things in mind, the rest will soon become clear in due course. What are the basics? First, stay alert to your surroundings and never take anything you see or are told as 100% accurate. If you assume the worst and have a fallback plan in case things do not work out, you will go a long way towards avoiding problems. Never trust any single piece of nav gear, not radar or even GPS. One device may not be working correctly, or you may have made a mistake with the information. We always back up our primary nav fixes with a second. Keep in mind that you are almost always safer offshore than trying to make a difficult or dangerous landfall in adverse conditions. Sea room is your friend. Don't rush things. And finally, stay ahead on maintenance.
Stack your sheets, baby. Stack your sheets and reach through life. Oh yeah, stack your sheets, baby. Stack your sheets and reach through life. When the seas get tough and your heart feels rough, stack your sheets and reach through life. Stack your sheets and reach through life.
We feel that one of the most important priorities for successful cruising is a basic understanding of weather. If you get this down, and it's not that hard, you will be physically and mentally more comfortable, and this applies at sea, at anchor, and even ashore. Today, it is much easier to get yourself up to speed. Between the computer tools available and the internet, you have the opportunity to practice at home. You can even make your own forecasts, plan tactics accordingly, and then watch how the real-world data unfolds. You're allowed to learn from mistakes, which can be evaluated from the security of land. Let's look at Mariner's Weather Handbook. It's designed in 2 sections. The first is set up to give you a basic feel for how weather works. It will probably take a couple of read-throughs, and you may want to refer to some of the weather questions and discussions at setsail.com. But soon the basics will become clear. The second section deals with tactics, how to make the weather work for you, not against you. We start with frontal passages and temperate weather in general, and then move on to tropical considerations. You will find a series of executive summaries throughout the book. These are good reminders when you're at sea and you want a quick refresher. You will also find that the book is designed with oversized type, which makes it easy to refer to at night while you're on watch. Truly dangerous weather is rare. In over 250,000 miles, we've been exposed to less than 3 days of it. And most of this was before the days of WeatherFax and the Internet. Yet, if you venture offshore, we feel you should be prepared for the worst. There are a couple of things to keep in mind while you're thinking about this subject. First, understanding the basics of how weather works is crucial to choosing the correct storm tactics and avoiding heavy weather in the first place. Often, moving the boat 50 miles in one direction or the other can make a huge impact on the weather you experience. Figuring out where to position yourself is a relatively simple matter if you understand the basics of meteorology. Most of the unhappy stories we've investigated started with small maintenance problems which cascaded into something far worse at the onset of heavy weather. Practicing preventative maintenance before you depart means more energy can be focused on dealing with weather. Throughout surviving the storm, you will find real-world examples and suggested tactics. Practicing all of these approaches in moderate conditions during both day and night will help you prepare for the real thing. This book begins with the experiences of 10 different cruisers in the Tasman Sea during late 1998. Most of them did well. A few had the type of problems we would all rather avoid. With these real-world stories as a foundation, the preparation section of the book will walk you through how to evaluate risk factors on board and what to do about them. Each aspect, from the engine and driveline to steering, rig, safety on deck, personal safety gear, and storm canvas, is covered. The section finishes with a discussion and examples of when to use or not use a life raft. The section on tactics starts with the 1998 Sydney-Hobart race. Take a close look at the pre-race weather analysis. There were plenty of warning signs of what was coming. There are examples and interviews from 11 of the boats which endured the worst of the storm and the different strategies they employed. Pay close attention to the section, What Really Happened to the Weather. With this survival storm as a background, we'll take you through a variety of defensive measures you can employ. Keep in mind that there is no magic formula. No one tactic that works for all boats in all storms. You often need to change tactics as the weather changes. Heaving to and heavy air beating, including motor sailing to windward, is first. Then comes running before the storm. Reaching in heavy air brings with it special risk factors. Finally, we'll discuss lying ahull. Rarely a good idea. There are special sections devoted to cruising onboard multi-hulls or under power, but we suggest reading the conventional tactics sections as well. Drogues and Sea Anchors reviews a variety of hardware and techniques for using this gear. The key thing to keep in mind is that in order to be successfully used, this equipment should be practiced with in moderate conditions. Dangerous conditions are rare, and most of us don't sail often enough to be exposed more than briefly. So we've gone to a series of professional sailors to get their feedback. This section starts on page 481 and includes the comments of 26 pros. Outside help is rarely necessary. But if it is, you need to understand the procedures and risks involved in abandoning your vessel for the theoretical safety of another. This topic is covered in detail starting on page 551 with a number of examples along with comments by the rescuers, both sea and helicopter-based. We've left design and construction to the end. Although this is also covered in Offshore Cruising Encyclopedia, the emphasis here is strictly on how the design-build process affects the boat in survival weather. You will find discussions on hull and rig design factors, construction, and interior layouts as they relate to the worst Mother Nature can dish up. The last section begins with the comments of two professionals who spend their time investigating situations that have gone wrong. Their comments tie back to everything you've read up to this point, while reinforcing the importance of maintenance and understanding how to handle your boat in heavy weather. You'll probably want to read these comments several times. Finally, there's a recap starting on page 662, which brings all of the key elements back together. Before leaving this subject, we'd like to re-emphasize that heavy weather in general and survival storms in particular are rare events for the average cruiser. If you take the time to learn the basics of meteorology, which is not hard, prepare your boat as if you expect to get hammered, and then do some practicing in normal gales, you and your crew will feel much more comfortable, emotionally and physically, in good weather as well as in bad. Every aspect of heavy weather preparation also yields benefits for everyday cruising.
There are storms on the horizon. There are thorns in our feet. There's a holy river flowing where the water tastes so sweet.
Getting ready to go cruising is hard. Between honing your personal skills, learning the boat and its systems, and making those hundreds of decisions about what to take and what to leave behind, it's sometimes tough to remember why you're doing this in the first place. But once you've done it, actually cut the lines that bind you to land, it gets a lot better. There's still a learning curve, but within a short period, the cruising life will become second nature. It's what you and all your friends afloat are doing. The land life you left behind is what will feel strange.
Our 4 books
will help to keep the dream alive, as well as showing you many of the aspects of boat handling, weather, and systems we've been discussing. And then there's Sarah's music, which will help keep you focused at home, at work, in the car, and once you're finally out there cruising. Remember, once you cut those lines and go, the dreams become reality.
Just like I knew that someday I would. I got it all fixed up to go. I got her looking all shiny and brand new. I got everything but true love and just the right amount of perfect crew. Well, someday I'll sail away. I've seen all kinds of pictures of pretty islands, seen some places that I sure like to see. I got this boat down in Marina Del Rey, but there's a lot of places I'd rather be. I got my boat sitting in the marina, wondering what the hell I'm planning to do. Got a feeling I should take off and sail, but I know that I can't go without you. Someday I'll sail away. All right now. Tequila, South Pacific Island, paradise. Waiting. This little boat is kinda looking at me like I'm the last person it wants to see. I know that I've been a little disappointed, but I can tell you not to give up on me. The only thing I'm waiting on is true love, and that can't be too far away. But then again, I might have better luck looking in paradise than out here in LA. But someday I'll sail away. Someday I'll sail away.